Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan. My name is Patrick Zoll, and I'm the East Asia correspondent for the Swiss newspaper Neue Zürcher Zeitung. Our guest today is Ms. Rebiya Kadeer. She's a pretty regular guest here at the FCCJ, actually. And as you all know, she's the president of the World Uyghur Congress. She's here to explain, mainly to Japanese politicians, but also Japanese media, the situation of the Uyghur people. And that's what she's going to do here first. She's going to give a short introduction about the current situation, and then we'll open up for question and answers. Before I forget, please turn off your mobile phones or put them on manner mode so they don't disturb us. Ms. Rebiya Kadeer, please.
Rahmat. Hammalarning tushdan keyinligi xayrli bo'lsin. Rahmat kelganinglarga va bu klubdagilarni o'rlashtirganiga.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. So I would like to thank the Foreign Correspondent Club for organizing this press conference.
Bu qitim biz Yaponiyaga xalqimizning vaziyati intayin ig'ir bo'lg'achqa biz Amerikada va Yevropada, dunyoning hamma yerida o'zimizning ahvolimizni degan bo'lsaqmi, ya'ni Yaponiyagami mushundaq jiddiy bir vaziyat haqida Yaponiya hukumati va xalqi jurnalistlarga bir uqtirish to'g'riliq bergandik.
So the purpose of our trip to Japan this time is to inform and in brief the Japanese politicians, Japanese journalists, reporter in public about the Chinese government's ongoing crackdown in East Turkestan and intensified repression on Uyghur people.
Onun üstüge Xitay hükümeti Şarkı Türkistan'ın besip alğanın 66 yıllığı hem Şinjan Uyghur atalmış Şinjan Uyghur Abdunum Rayın degen kanununu bergenге 60 yıllığını bu yıl bütün dünyaya Uygurlarını en bəxtli qıldıq dep təntəni bilə elan qıldı.
As you know, Chinese government on the 1st of October celebrated the 66th anniversary of the communist takeover of the East Turkestan and the 60th anniversary of Xinjiang, establishment of the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, and claimed that they brought prosperity, equality for the Uyghur people.
Dal Xitay hükümeti dünya Uygurlarını bəxtli qıldıq dep elan qılatqan muş paytның özüdə minlarca, 10 minlarca adam yaş Uygurlar Xitayның turmusda, yüzlerce, onlarca Uygurlar her günü, her haftada degidek etip öldürülatqan Şarkı Türkistan'ның içində şunda ağır bir facia devirdi.
So in contrast to Chinese government's claim that they brought the prosperity and luck for the Uyghur people, the situation in East Turkestan is getting worse, and thousands of the Uyghur political prisoners are lingering and suffering in Chinese prison. And the extrajudicial killings of the Uyghur people by the Chinese security forces is continued.
Mana dal mushundaq vaqtida tarixda misli ko'rilmagan hodis xarakterlik 10 minglarcha Uyg'urlar eqib ballarini 4-tün 5-tün ballarini so'rab bütün öy makallarını yerlerini tashlab dunyoning hamma yeriga sargandar bo'lib qechib chiqqan vaqt edi.
And also thousands of Uyghurs are escaping from the Chinese persecution, trying to take refuge in neighboring countries with their children and leaving all their belongings and only to save their lives.
Agar Xitay hükümeti Uygurlarni özü degandek 60 yil ichida ajoyib baxtli xotirjam turmushga erishtirgan bo'lsa, Sharqi Turkistonning yerlik millati bo'lgan Uyg'ur xalqi nima uchun bundaq turmularga to'shib ketdi? Nima uchun bundaq dunyoga sargandar bo'lib chiqib ketdi? Nima uchun undaq o'lim voqealari, qonliq voqealar ko'p yuz berdi degan savol butun dunyoda bo'lishi kerak deb qarayman.
So we are so if the Chinese government, the Chinese government, of course, claimed that they brought prosperity and equality for the Uyghur people, development for the region, if they are right in their claim, and why, and then all these bloody incidents are happening in East Turkestan, why thousands of people are leaving East Turkestan as refugees and taking refuge in neighboring countries, and why thousands of Uyghur political prisoners are suffering in Chinese prisons.
Mening Yaponiyaga 7-chi qitim kelishim, har qitim kelgan vaqtida Uyg'urlarning milliy kimligi va Uyg'urlarning kishilik huquqi, Uyg'urlarning iqtisodiy masalasi, til masalasi, qizlar masalasi haqida deklarat bergan edim.
So this is the 7th time I'm visiting Japan. So in my past visits, I talked about the Chinese government's human rights violation, economic backwardness of the Uyghur people, and they are about the difficulty to use their language and religious repression, and about these things.
Lekin bu qitim Uyg'urlarning hayot mamat masalasi, Uyg'urlarning keng ko'lamda qirg'inchilik qilish masalasi ustida deklarat berman.
So now I would like to talk about the death and life situation in East Turkestan.
Uyg'urlar bugun har hafta degidek, har kun degidek Xitoy hukumatı Xi Jinping chiqqan mush 2 yil ichida Uyg'urlarni o'lim jazosiga hukm qilishni, mayli Hu Jintao bo'lsin, mayli Jiang Zemin bo'lsin, qandaq rais bo'lsin, Uyg'urlarni yolg'ondan bo'lsin, rostdan bo'lsin tutib bir sud qilib o'lim jazosiga hukm qiladi. Lekin Xi Jinping chiqqan bu 2 yil ichida Uyg'urlarga hech qanday sud qilish emas, o'ylarda xoliga yerda xalq saqchilari tarafidan etib o'ldirish huquqi tuvanga tushirib berildi.
So during the Xi Jinping's rule, the repression in East Turkestan, the situation in East Turkestan deteriorated dramatically and repression intensified. Of course, during the Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao era, there was also repression, but at least, for example, the Uyghur dissidents arrested, and the people who resisted the Chinese security forces arrested, and there was some show trials, and then persecuted, and then sentenced to prison or executed. But now the new phenomena is the extrajudicial killings. Now Chinese security forces, in a very small sign of resistance, shoot and kill the Uyghur people. This is the new phenomena in East Turkestan.
Bu siyaset Uyg'urlarga zo'lab chiqilish, Uyg'urlarni o'ch ilishga majburlash, Uyg'urlarni mushundaq nayt qattiq bir o'ziga qarshi chiqishga zo'rlashdan iborat siyasat deb qaradik.
This repression, of course, this is this repression also they have a reaction by the Uyghurs, and because of this repression of the Chinese government, the situation is becoming worse, and tensions are rising among the Chinese and Uyghur people.
Men jiq vaqtinglarni almaslik uchun faqat Sharqi Turkistonda bo'lib atgan qirg'inchilikning birini misol qilib beraman. Bunda qirg'inchiliklar har haftada, har 10 kunda bir yuz beryapti. Azaldan Uyg'urlarga o'lim jazosi hukm qilish nisbati Xitoy davlati bo'yicha aytganda siyosiy mahbuslarga faqat Uyg'urlarga o'lim jazosi berish eng yuqori bosqichda. Mana shundaq paytda men hozir qonunsiz o'ltirishdan birini misol qilib beraman.
So I would like to just give an example about the bloody incidents which happening in East Turkestan, and I would like also stress that the Chinese government only execute Uyghur political prisoners. No other ethnic groups are executed because of the political reasons.
Uyg'urlar yakanda Ramazonning 27-kuni Muşu 2014 yılı 7. ayının 14'te bir akşam hemmisi namaz okuşqa meşgite çıkıp ketidi. Ayallar 2-3 öydeki ayallar ballar bir öyge kirip ibadet kıvatkan vaqtda Xitay saqçıları tarafidan kirip tövünü 3 yaşlık bala yuqurishisi 70 yaşlık ayallıqıca qirib etip çıkıp ketidi.
So I would like to give the example of the Yarkent incident which happened on the 27th of July 2014 in East Turkestan. So it was the 27th of the Ramadan, a holy day for the Uyghurs, and all the men went to mosque to pray, and the women and children were remain in their houses, and a group of women gathered in a home and wanted to pray, but the Chinese security forces considered this action as an illegal religious activity and break into the houses, into this house, and killed 12 people in this house, including 3-year-old child, as a 70-year-old woman.
Bunu Xitay hökuməti çıxıb ketkendik ki, meçitki barlıq erler qaytıp gelip bu faciani kökendik ki bütün mahallenin adamları qozgulup ketidi.
Now, of course, when the man informed about this incident, they came and they, of course, they protested against this brutality of the Chinese police.
Çünkü bu vaka keşti bolgan vaka bolgaçka seher vakti bilen bütün adamlar ölüklerini götürüp sakçının aldığa hemmisi gömürülüp barıdı.
And they took all the bodies of the dead Uyghurs and came to protest and gathered in front of the police station of the Ilishko County.
Allah kaçan ideya tayarlık koygan Xitay hükümeti etrafını askerler bilen korçap durup sakçılar bilen içiden aptımatıyla etip hatta aş koludu kuçuğudu balısı ve ayallardan tatıp bağan erlerden tatıp aş nak meydanda sakçı aldığı yığılgan halık kançı olsa şunçını kırıp öldürdü.
So the people wanted just to, peacefully to protest and ask the Chinese government to punish the perpetrators of this, bloody incident. But of course, the Chinese police opened fire and killed hundreds of the Uyghurs, including children and women, in front of the police station.
Ertesilan bunu Şinhuaşi'de toplantılarını öldürdük, teröristlerini öldürdük deyip dünya elan kıldı.
But the Xinhua news agency reported the next day that the Chinese security forces killed the terrorists in the region.
Lekin yani şunun bilen kanaat qilib qolmasdan ertesi etdigende bu vaqa akşamı bolgan bulup keçici haqlar öldürülüp bolgandan ertesi etdigende tikçar aeroplan bilen o bütün yezilar yekenning yezisidagi odamlarni dehqonchilik chiqayotgan odamlarni odamsiz tikçar aeroplan bilen qirib tashlaydi. Mahalla yurib.
So then the Chinese military was also involved, and military helicopters also used in this, operation. And Chinese government, Chinese security forces launched an operation in 3 villages of this Ilishko County and killed hundreds of people in these villages, in 3 villages.
Biz şu vaqtida bunu dunyoga xabar qilsak yolg'ondaydi.
When we when we reported this to the international community, there was no response.
Jurnalistlar Şinhuaşa nimini bilsa şunu rastlaydı aşlarının propagandasını.
Unfortunately, the international media also just quoted what the Xinhua reported.
Lekin chet ellik yaxshi muxbirlarimiz aşı aeroplanning uçqan aş mahalle üstüdeki resimlerini tatib dunyoga chiqarib atgandan keyin Xitoy andikin ixro qilib, "Voy biz mushundaq to'planchilarni bostirdik aeroplan bilan" deb ixro qildi.
But a few days later, when the international correspondents there to go to the region and report, then Chinese Xinhua agency also accepted that there was a popular uprising and the Chinese security forces used force to suppress that.
Şuningdan 1 yil burun yana Lükçündimi o'xshashlashni aeroplan bilan qirg'inchilik qildi.
1 year earlier in Lukchin County of Turfan, also Chinese security forces used military helicopters to kill Uyghur farmers in the region.
Hem Xitoy hükümeti hazır dünya terrorizm hareketinden faydalanıp Uygurlarni tinchlik bilan o'zining erkinligi uchun kurash qilgan Uygurlarni, tinchlik bilan bir maqol yozgan Uygurlarni, tinchlik bilan fikr vergan Uygurlarning hammasini terrorist deb keng ko'lamda vatanning ichida bostirib atadi, vatanning tinchligini tutib akitib atadi. Men bütün jurnalistlarga, bütün dünyadaki axborot o'rniga bu Yaponiyaga kelib ham Yaponiya xalqi, Yaponiya hukumatiga mush ishlardan bir xabardor qilay deb keldim.
So Chinese government also, of course, used a war on terror in order to suppress the peaceful dissidents in East Turkestan. So everybody, Chinese government consider every action, every complaint or every protest as a terrorist action and kill the Uyghur dissidents as terrorists. So I came to Japan, and also I want to call the international community to draw attention to the terrible situation in our region.
Muxbir efendimler, Uygurlarning ahvoli hozir intayin ig'ir.
the situation of the Uyghur people, as I said, terrible.
Bir millet cinayetçi de bekitildi Xitay hükümeti tarafından.
So all the Uyghurs are being considered as potential suspect by the Chinese
Hazırki
government.
Xi Jinping hükümetinin bütünlüğü yok tutuş objektifine aylandı.
So Xi Jinping government launched a wholesale attack on Uyghurs.
Mesela Cungo'da, Xitay devletinde hem adamda birden kimlik var. Lakin Uygurlarga alayda ikinci kimlik verildi.
So everybody has a one identity card in China, but Chinese government issued two identity cards for the Uyghur people.
Eğer Uygurlar bir nesige çıkkanda ki şundaklam karta helik kartını çıkarıp çıkırgan dikin üyede Uygurlarını tepip atkan, urup atkan, harlap atkan, karşılaşıp atkan muşundak hadiseler çıktı.
So sorry, the Chinese government issued a different identity card for the Uyghur people. So they put a chip in that card. When they come to a checkpoint, when they put that scan that identity card, then it will give a sound and alarm the security forces that he is Uyghurs, and he'll be checked.
Şarkı Türkistan'ın işçi hazır. Muşu tiniş halk yaşavatkan cimcitlik rayıllar bütün asker bilen 2. Dünya uruşudaki şaşlam kaplap ketken tankı, avtomat işler bilen jürüvatkan Uygurlar aşlarının arasında nan aşıyap yaşavatıdı.
So the policy of the Chinese government turned East Turkestan almost to a war zone. There are military vehicles, Chinese soldiers patrolling every street of the Uyghur neighborhoods, Chinese police, armed police everywhere. So almost it looks like a war zone if you go to East Turkestan.
Endi men iki meseleni misal kıpadım. Her haftada, her 10 günde Uygurlar şunda katlı kırgınçılık, şunda tutkun buluvatıdı. Məli şehirlerde. Hem şuna bugün sizlerinki kandak suallarınla olsa cevap verey. Bugün sizlerge yetkizdiğin gibi bir şey tamamladı.
So there is every day there is a bloody incident in East Turkestan, and every day Uyghurs are being killed by the Chinese security forces. So this situation is deteriorating. So now.
Endi yani bir narsa biz bu dünya müracaat kıpamıya çıkıvatımız. Xitaylar Uygurlarını öldürüşünü Cungo'nun işi de dünyanın hiç kasını yakın keltirmeyevatıdı.
So Chinese government claim that all these incidents, what's happening is a internal affairs of China. So nobody has the right to interfere.
Bu iş emez. Bu kadar adam ölüvatkanken dünya aralışıdığan iş, bu bir kişilik hukuk işi. Şunun için bütün dünyanın bununla aralışını ümit kılımız.
So number of the people are being killed by the Chinese authorities or killed by the Chinese security forces, and number of the Uyghur dissidents, people who disappear, reach to a level that require an international interference.
Ben yalnız Uygurlarla emez, Şarkı Türkistan'da yaşavatkan her millet halkının tiniş hatırcam yaş için yardım kılışını ümit kılım.
So we would like to create a condition in East Turkestan that all the ethnic groups who live in East Turkestan should live in prosperity and peace. And I would like to ask your support in our movement.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this introduction. So we go straight to question and answers. I will take working press first, and if there's enough time, I go to other people. As usual, please introduce yourself and keep your one question, as short as possible. Who wants to go first? Puchita-san?
My name is Fujita. I'm independent and affiliated with the evening newspaper Yukan Fuji. I'd like to know exactly what kind of things do you expect to the Japanese government or Japanese media or Japanese people? I would like to, for example, if you have specific requests or proposal, I'd like to know.
Deydi şu Japonya hükümetinden ya matbuatıdan deydi. Seninki kandak bir uçuk bir talebin var.
Yaponiya hükümetinden talebim bizdinki Yaponiya hem de bizning işimizga nurgun köngül berdi rast. Biz üçün bir dostluk grup kuruldu. 40'dan artık adam ba parlament içindeki dostluk grupumuzda. Lekin hazırgıçı bir ameli bir iş qilib beremedi.
As you know, of course, the Japanese politicians have been showing a great interest to the Uyghur issue, and they are very sympathetic to our cause. And a Uyghur Japan friendship group was created in Japanese parliament, and it has 45 members now. But we haven't seen a real and specific action by this group to raise the awareness about the situation of the Uyghur people.
Biz ümit qilamiz Yaponiya hükümeti Uyg'urlarning masalasini tashqi ishlar va o'zining hukumatining siyosiy tartibiga akirishini va Uyg'urlarni qutqizishni bir qonun ma'qullamdi, bir nima qilib Uyg'urlar masalasiga Xitoy rasmiy aralashishini, suhbatni o'ttirg'i qo'yishni, vatanimizga tekshirish umak evatib, haq ishni nima bo'lyotidi tekshirishni umid qilamiz.
And also we would like to Japanese government to raise the Uyghur issue when they met with the Chinese officials, and they should speak, they should talk about the human rights violation in the region, and put the Uyghur issue in their agenda when they meet, when they involved in any meetings with the Chinese officials.
Histoshlik bildirish emas, amilli ish qilishini, Xitoy bilan zada bizning tekshirish umak evatish, Uyg'urlarni nima uchun o'ltiryapsan deyish hamda jurnalistlardan mening qo'ydigan talablarim, jurnalistlar Xitoyning davomning shixoshining ishlatgan Rebiya yolg'on propagandalarini emas, bizning Sharqi Turkistonga berib bu dunyo degan yarsharlashib ketdi hozir. Berib haqiqiy ahvolni ko'rib kelishi, xalqning og'zidan mushundaq anglashi, yig'layotgan tövellarga tushib dehqonlarning ovozini anglashi, o'layotgan odamlarning farzandlarini intervyu qilishi, propaganda bilan ma'ni selishtirib dunyoga haqiqiy narsaning qiyofatini ochiqishni umid qilamiz.
And also we would like to ask the Japanese government to send a fact-finding missions to East Turkestan and to find out what's happening, what's really happening on the ground. And we would like to ask the Japanese journalists not to, quote what the Chinese official media report about the incidents in East Turkestan. They should send their own reporters, ask the Chinese government to let their reporters to report from the region and go to the region and find out the fact and then report about the incident. Not only quote the Chinese official news agencies like Xinhua and Rebiya.
Hem her qandaq vaqtida Xitoy hukumati tarafdan muxbirlarga davomliq yig'in içirdi. Uyg'urlar to'g'riliq savol javob berdigan. Shu Uyg'urlar to'g'riliqlar emas, o'zining davlat siyosatining intayin muqim bo'lib ketganligi, shunda xalqning baxtli yashayotganligi haqida deklaratsiyalarni berib muxbirlarga javob berdi. Shu vaqtida Uyg'urlar nima uchun o'ldi, nima uchun turmushga kirdi, nima uchun o'tiringlarga majra tugmaydi degan savollarni qo'yishni umid qilaman.
Also we would like the Japanese reporters in Beijing when they on the foreign ministry briefings, for example, they should ask when they talk about a situation in East Turkestan or Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, they should ask questions contrast to the what the officials claim. They should ask the Chinese officials why all these bloody incidents are happening in East Turkestan. And why are this tension rising increasingly between the ethnic groups in the region?
Okay.
Hello, I'm from the BBC. I'd like you to comment on a couple of things. One is the recent bombing in Bangkok in Thailand. The Thai authorities have arrested a number of people who they say are of Uyghur background, and also on the rising number of incidents of violence we've seen against Han Chinese targets inside Xinjiang, inside East Turkestan, if you like, and also in other parts of China, the Kunming railway attack in which many people were killed. These are
Atlantik'i partlatış vakası meyle Kunming olsun. Bundaq günahsız adamlarını öldürüp zoravallık qilishni Dünya Uyghur Kurultayı biz Uyghur halkı qattiq ayıplaymiz.
So the World Uyghur Congress and the Uyghur people condemn, the bombing in Bangkok, and we condemn all kind of violence, and we don't want to see innocent people being killed.
Biz bundaq buluşni bizning Uyghur halkı ümit qilmaydi, xolamaydi deydi.
The Uyghur people is against all kind of violence and condemn all kind of terror actions.
Çünki Xitayning uzun yillardan beri maqsadi Uyg'urlarni mushunga bog'lab, butun dunyoga Uyg'urlarni ashunda tashviq qilish orqali yo'qotmoqchi.
Because Chinese government has been trying very hard since many years to link the Uyghur movements, the Uyghurs, to the international terror groups and find a excuse to crack down further on Uyghurs.
Biz Xitay hökuməti bilan bir neçə qitim bütün dünyaga 10 yıldan beri davatımız ben turmadan çıqqılı 10 yıl oldu. Muş Uyg'urlarni har kuni o'ltirish, tutish, iqtisodiy jihatdan vayron qilish, qizlarini akilish, mushunda ko'tagil bo'lmaydigan fojialik bostirish
because the repression will lead then to the violence and create the situation now we face now in East Turkestan.
Lekin Xitay hökuməti unutmadı. Bunundan 20 yıl burun Xitaylar özümü dep baxsın, Şarkı Türkistanğa bargan Xitay halkımı dep baxsın, bir Uyghur qoluğa şunda bir narsa elip, bir narsa partlaganmı yoki bir Xitayga qarşı chiqqanmı desa, undaq ishlar bo'lib baqqan emas.
You can ask also Chinese people, 20 years ago there was no violence. We haven't seen any news, any information that a Uyghur stabbed a Han Chinese or killed a Han Chinese, and there was a bloody incident between the two ethnic groups.
Endi Uyg'urlar shu vaqtida namrat, shu vaqtida Uyg'urlar xorliq ostida, besim ostida, zo'ravonlik ostida bo'lgan bo'lsa-mu, hozirgiga nisbatan biroz yaxshiraqdi.
So at the time, 20 years ago, also the Uyghurs were under the Chinese government's repression. But the repression was not so intense as it is today.
Dünya 9/11 vakası çıkan günden tatip Xitay hökuməti Uyg'urni excuse me deb o'ltirdigan paytim keldi. Çünki bu İslam diniga e'tiqod qilganligi uchun bütün Uyg'urni terrorizmga bog'lab yo'qotadigan bo'ldim deb Uyg'urlarni ash bir ism bilan hujum qilib, baka tutqun qilish, o'ltirishni boshlab
So but after the 9/11, Chinese government thought that it has now a opportunity and it has a pretext, used a pretext, the war on terror, to crack down on Uyghurs and call all actions of the Uyghur people as terror actions and use 9/11 as a pretext to suppress the Uyghur descent.
Nurgulluğan günahsız, hiç kandak hişimini bilmeydiğen, hatta özü turmuğa kirip, nemege kirgini bilmeydiğen yaşla mınlap turmulağı toşup gitti.
So there are now thousands of Uyghur political prisoners. Many of them don't know why they are in prison.
Men üzemmi turmudu yetip, dastlapta nemege kirmey qalğanym, nemege kirip qalğanymny bilmedim.
I also spent more than 6 years in Chinese prison. I even didn't know at the beginning why I am in prison, why they arrested me and put in jail.
Endi Kunming vakasıga cevap verme.
So I want to say a few words about the Kunming incident.
8 minut içinde
8 minut emas, jiqroq.
8 minut şu vaqt e'lon 8-9 minut içinde 30 neçe adam öldürülüp şuncha 100'dan artıq adam yardar bo'lganligini e'lon qildi deydi.
So Chinese government, of course, in Kunming incident, Chinese government claimed that in a few minutes, within a few minutes, 8 people killed 32 innocent people and injured more than 140 people in a train station in Kunming.
Poyez istansiyasi butunlay Xanzu xalqi va saqchilar bilan qoplangan yer.
So if you go to Kunming, you will find out that the train station is full with the security personnel and also with the Han people.
Şedemni chiqib hech qanday odamga oshkorlamaylam, mushu men qildim dedi deb aytib o'tdi.
So Chinese government claimed that they arrested some people and without letting them to speak to the international media or to any person, they claimed that they accepted their that they carried out this attack and executed 3 of them.
Bütün Uyghur xalqının fikrini men aqlab atmayman. Bütün Uyghur xalqının ve haqiqatni biladigan Xitoy xalqining bu masala ustida gumoni va bu Xitoy hukumatining alayda tarbiyalangan atirtining qilgan ishi. Chunki Xitoy hukumatining siyosiy ishki jihatdan chirib ketgan bo'lganligi uchun mushundaq vaqa chiqarish orqali o'zining adimini qo'rqitib, Uyg'urlarga otib turib, Uyg'urlarni bostirmoqchi, Xitoylarning og'zini bosmoqchi degan gaplar taqilyapti. Men bu rostmi, yolg'onmi, rost Uyg'ur qildimi yoki ashundaq bir vaqa bo'ldimi? Buni men to'liq javob bera olmayman.
But of course, we don't know who carried out this Kunming terrorist attack, but many claim that it is related with the internal, domestic conflict within the Chinese leadership. Also has some thing to do with the Chinese conflict among the Chinese leaders. So they claim that they are Uyghurs, so the Uyghurs carried out this attack, but we don't know who was behind this and is behind this, terrorist attack. So it is very suspicious, incident. So we have been also trying to find out the fact.
Qandaq adamdan qilishdan qat'iy nazar buni qilgan vahshiy odamni biz qattiq ayiblaymiz. Bundaq ishning bo'lishini xohlamaymiz.
But of course we condemn the Kunming attack and as a terrorist attack, and we condemn this action because we don't want anywhere to see innocent people are being killed.
Thank you.
Okay, next question, please. Yes, please.
Elaine Lees, Reuters. So you mentioned that due to the Chinese repression, that tensions are rising in Xinjiang. Are Uyghurs in Xinjiang becoming increasingly radicalized? And why? Is this a reaction to China's controls, and what could this lead to?
Biz şundan endiş qıvatımız deyildən. Çünki Xitay hökuməti Uyğurlarının dini erkinligini, normal ketibatqan dini erkinliginin hamısını besiş ve onundan çekleş, bika normal dini erkinlik ve adamların turmuğa ekilip taşlaş, ölüm cezası hüküm kılış, müddetli qamaq cezası ilan kılış arqılıq 20 yıldan beri naitdi Uyghur xalqılığa qattiq bir bastırış yapmadı.
So the Chinese government's religious repression, especially religious repression, became unbearable in East Turkestan. The people cannot, practice their daily religious activities as well. They cannot practice normal religious activities even. So this, repression, this religious repression, unbearable religious repression, of course, lead to a radicalization of the Uyghur people.
Onun bilen radikallaşıp ketip devatmayma. Aşındak bastırış arkalı turmuğu taşlaş, bikadım bikaga dini erbaplarını ölüm cezası hiç kandak sebepsizla bir okuguçunu okutup sende bir dini takvadar bir erbaplarını ekiriplan ölüm cezası kata açık ölüm cezası hüküm kılış. Şunun bilen bulanın hemisini turmuğu taşlaş. Onun dinkin bulanın ruz tutmaysan, namaz okumaysan, onu kılmaysan devagendikin halk bilen Xitay hökuməti oturda bir qarşılış payda bulub xalqның aşındaq hər xil nərsəyə baş uruşqa səbəb çıxıldı.
So especially the Chinese government repression, religious repression, so created a tension, rising the tension between the Chinese government and Uyghur people, because Chinese government interfere in daily practice of the religious practice of the Uyghur people. They arrest without any reason the Uyghurs who pray at the homes and consider praying at home as illegal religious activities, and people who teach the Uyghur children in private schools are being arrested and sentenced to a long time imprisonment, even executed. And also Chinese government, especially during the Ramadan, banned Ramadan, banned Uyghurs to practice the Ramadan and observe the Ramadan, and even they came to schools and classes and forced the students in classes and teachers to drink, to eat in front of Chinese officials to make sure that they are not, observing the Ramadan. So this situation created a, terrible tension between the government and between the Uyghur people.
Xalq bilen hükümet oturda qattiq bir qarşılaşış payda qıldı deydi.
This conflict, okay.
Şu qarşılaşış jarayonida xalqning nemigi baş urishini uqmay, har xil narsalarga baş uradigan ahvolni hükümetning siyosati keltirib chiqadi.
So this policy of the Chinese government created a situation that the Uyghurs, maybe joined other groups.
Şuna biz Xitay hökumətiga bu siyasətni özgərtiş, Uyğurlarga bir çıraylık muamele qilish, bundaq adamlarning yetilib chiqilishi, men mushunda qarshilashning paydo bo'lishining oldini olish to'g'riliq bir necha qitim taklif berdik va Amerikaga dedik, boshqa davlatlarga dedik, mushu ishning oldini olish to'g'riliq. Lekin Xitay hökuməti kundan kunga Uyğurlarni besishni ig'irlashdiki, yeniklashtirmadi. Shu sababdan 10 minglığan Uyğur Tayland, Malayziya, Türkiye qatarlıq yerlərə qaçdı. Mana heç niməni bilməydigan Uyğurlar dünyanın həmmə yerində hazır tarqab aşnaq yürüb atıdı.
And of course we asked the Chinese government to change its policy, because we were worried that this Chinese repression will lead the situation we are facing now. And we also asked other Western government even to put pressure on Chinese government to change its policies, because we knew that this policy, this repression will lead the situation we face now. Now thousands of Uyghurs fled the country and escaped from China, took refuge to the neighboring countries, to Thailand, Malaysia, Turkey, and now we can find the Uyghur refugees all over the world.
And the Xitay hökuməti özünlər kördünlər, aş keçib çıxan sərgandar biçarlarını Tayland turmuşdan 115 adamını əkətdi. Pul verib.
As you know, the Chinese government put pressure on Thai officials to return 115 Uyghurs forcibly back to China.
Ulanın 3'tün 2'den ballarını, xotunlarını Türkiye'ye verip, erlerini, yaş kıran erlerinin hemmisini eketdi. Hazırgıç urup öldürdü mü, ya ki kıynap öldürdü mü bizim haberimiz yok.
So the Chinese officials, of course, put pressure on Thai to return these Uyghur refugees. And the interesting thing is that their children and their wives were sent to Turkey, and their husbands sent back to China. So we don't know what happened all these 115 people who were deported back to China, or whether they are being killed or it is very obvious they have they tortured. We don't know what happened, where and about whereabout of these.
Endi ma çetellerge çıkıp közü içilgan bir narsani köge Uygurlar ma dünyanın nimeligini uqudi deydi.
So of course the Uyghurs now live in foreign countries, know what's happening in the world, but the Uyghurs inside East Turkestan and is unaware of the situation in the foreign countries.
Radyo anlaş, internette çetellerinin uqturuşunu mındaq bir nimelerini görüş. Aşındaq tutup algandikinde o Uyghur 10 yıl kesilip ketidi. Hiç qaysının chet ellerde bir hazırki taraqqiyatning xabari yo'q. Uyg'urning beshi hazır qop-quruqlam chet elga chiqqan Uyg'urlar hechimni uqmaydi. Kim nega yutilib ketsa shu yerga ketadi deydi.
So Uyghurs are live in a of course in a very closed society. And the Chinese government doesn't allow the Uyghurs to communicate with the outside world. And if they don't have access to international media, they don't have access to free press, because if they listen to the foreign radio stations, if they caught listening to the foreign radio station, they'll be punished severely. Even there are people who sentenced to 10, 12 years only for listening to foreign radio stations. So therefore, Uyghurs are unaware what's happening in the outside world, and when they come out of the country, once they are out in a foreign country, they don't know the people who are leading them, where they are going, where they are staying.
Asli bizning aşı Uyg'urlar iqib chiqqan vaqtida 2 yil Tayland sargandar bo'lib yurdi Malayziya bilan. Dunyoga biz Yuvanga bordik, Amerikaga bordik, Turkiyaga jugadik. 2 yilgacha bizning jugumiga yerimiz qolmadi. Dunyo aşı sargandarlar ega chiqish kerak. Ular ya inglizcha til bilmaydi, ya arabcha til bilmaydi, ya pokistoncha til bilmaydi. Uyg'ur tilidan boshqa hech narsani bilmaydi. Ular shundaq hodisalarga uchrashdan bizmi va butun Uyg'urlar hozir andish ichida deydi.
So they when the Uyghur refugees came to the Thailand and detained by the Thai authorities, we asked the United Nations and other Western countries to interfere to find a solution for the people who are in detention in Thailand, but nobody took a serious actions to solve this problem. They remain in Thai prison, Thai detention center for months, more than 1 year, and they in a very dire situation and dire conditions for almost 2 years. And
Andan keyin shu aşında 5 quruq bo'lganda qaysi adam başlasa shu tarafga ketadi. Faqat bir Turkiya ham andan keyin akatdi keyin qolganlarini deydi.
So only the Turkish government was ready and willing to take some of the refugees. And Uyghurs another thing is Uyghurs cannot speak the language except Uyghurs. They cannot speak Arabic, they cannot speak Persian, English. They cannot speak English. So some of course so this situation lead to some Uyghurs to join some groups maybe. Yeah.
Next question. Maybe I add a question here. You asked several times for Western countries, but also Japan, to intervene in the favor of Uyghurs, to make pressure on the Chinese government. How realistic do you think this is? After all, China is a major trading partner of almost any Western country, including Japan also. It's politically very important. How realistic is it that these countries stand up for the Uyghur?
Siz bayatını açık edin tekrarladınız deydim. O şey garip devlet. No, the Tibetans, our situation is very similar to Tibet situation. Tibetans also have been suffering under the Chinese rule for the 60 years.
Endi Tibet mu aşındak azap okubatlarga paylama özününki üstüdeki besim ve milli kimlik, milli horluk çıdımay özünü ot köydürüp aldı kançılığa adam.
So there is also the Chinese government also threatened the Tibetans' culture and national identity. Because of the repression in Tibet, as you know, there is this immolations, more than 100 people, you know.
Lekin bütün dünya Tibet doğruluk sözlegen boğallık için Tibet'nin ışığı bütün dünya, garip dünyası qattiq arlaşkan ve Yaponiyadan tatip qattiq arlaşkanlığı için Xitay hükümeti bizni kırganda kırıp etemedi deydi.
So, but the Tibet issue is very well known in international community, and many Western countries and the U.S. and also maybe Japan, interfered and raised the Tibetan issue and speak on behalf of Tibetans in many international forums, and talk with the Chinese government also about the Tibet issue. Therefore, Chinese government is more careful in implementing its repressive policies in Tibet in comparison to the East Turkestan or Uyghurs.
Tibet'te mi turmaladı şundak siyasi mahpuslarca ulanımı öldürüp atıdı. Lekin bizdek mundak her ay içinde 10'dun, 20'den, 30'dun kandak öldürüp atıdı. Uruşta ölgendek ölüp atıdı bizden adam.
Of course, there are in Tibet also there are a lot of hundreds of maybe thousands of Tibetan political prisoners. But the level of the repression, level of the this killings or is not you cannot compare with what's happening in East Turkestan.
Şuna dünyanın arlaşkınlığa, ula arlaşkandı kim bizning meselemiz bunda öltege vaqtida dünyanın arlaşkınlığının önümü buludu. Xitay çoğup ketdi dese bu kişilik hukuk meselesinde dünya yoğunap ketdi bu yalnız bizning tinchligimiz emas. Bütün Asiyanın tinchliği bozuldu bu işte. Mesela Uygurlar keçip çıktı mana. Jim vatanda turayotgan Uygur keçip çıkmagan bolsa, muş Tayland iş bolmaydı deydi adam. Mana dünyanın tinchliği bozuldu degan gap.
So that shows that the intervention of the Western governments, Western world is effective, in case of Tibet, we can, it is an example. If we, of course, if we don't interfere, they don't involved in any issue regarding the Uyghurs, then the situation will get terrible, and because it is now a security issue also. If the Uyghurs, if there was not repression, the Uyghurs would not escape to the Thailand, and this bombings in Thailand would not happen.
Bunda iş mi bulmaydı dedin. Buna demek bu yalnız Uygurlarla tinchliği emas. Bütün dünyanın tinchliği, bu dünyanın aralışlığı işi. Şunun için dünya bu Xitayning gapni anglamamdı, Xitayga gap qilish kerak deydi.
But the Uyghur issue now is becoming not only a Chinese issue, it is becoming an international issue. So therefore, the Western governments should, interfere, should, start a new approach to the Uyghurs and raise this Uyghur issue with the Chinese government in order to ease the tension and create a situation that people can live in peace in East Turkestan.
Okay. Yeah. If you don't have any, just say, there's nobody else, so please go ahead again. Yeah.
So, President Xi Jinping is about to go to the UK for a state visit, and he's going to be welcomed by the Queen of England. He's going to be given the red carpet treatment. The British government says it will not talk publicly about human rights, that it's better to talk privately. The finance minister of the UK, on a recent trip to China, went to Xinjiang, went to Urumqi, seemed to do a lot for Chinese propaganda by doing so. What do you say to the British government and its policy towards China on the Uyghur issue and on the issue of human rights? How should they do it differently?
Deydi ki hazır mı Xi Jinping nimeni ziyaret kıldı, Anglia'nı ziyaret kıldı, hazır mı Anglia Melik'si bunun yani kızıl gilam koyup nayta ani derecede bunu kütüp aladıkken dedi, kütüp aladı dedi. Onun dikinse mavu nime Anglia'nın ki Maliye Ministri yakında Xinjiang'ı ziyarette buldu. Bir boğandaki deydi o Xitay üçün bir nayt çoğun teşvikat bulmadı deydi, onunki bağını deydi. Hem de muşundak bir vaziyette bu Anglia'nın ki bu nimesi ki kandak karayısız, nime deysiz deydi.
Angliya əməldarlarına Xitay hökuməti avtomat bilan Uyğur qızlarını, yigitlərini açıq soyunatıb berdi deydi də. Avalmışında. Dəng deydigan gap.
So, of course, for the foreign officials, including the finance minister of the UK, who visits, Xinjiang, the Chinese government will bring the Uyghur girls, dancers, to show that the Uyghur people are, so happy and full of prosperity in Xinjiang, and people are living in harmony.
Ular qaranqılıqni köməydi deydi də. Nimi degan bəxtli xalq deyə yenib gəldi.
So they will not see the dark side of the situation in the region, and will come back with the impression that the people are living in peace in East Turkestan.
Lekin Angliya hökuməti biləmdi desə, bizning hazır qırğınçılıq uçurayotganımızdan bilidi. Əlbəttə, aşındaq bağa vaxtlarda bu xalq bunda qılmaslığı kerak deb oturğu qoyub, Uyğurlar məsələsiga tinchlik bilan muomala qil, bular yaxshi muomala qilsa, uni anglamaydi emas, Xitoyga bu gap ta'sir qiladi deydi də.
So of course the UK government is aware, very much aware what's happening in East Turkestan, about the ongoing Chinese crackdown. Of course, if they should tell the Chinese president that he should change his policy in East Turkestan and and respect the human rights, at least the human rights of the Uyghur people.
Lekin Xitoy hökuməti bütün dünyanın ağzıga aş pulni tiqib qizil gilamlarning dəst üstüge aşı qizil gilamlar selingan tıqqan pulda bizning qeynimiz var. Tibetning, Uyg'urning, Mongolning aş ölüb atqan Xitoydagi gunohsiz odamlarning qeyni var.
So of course it is very unfortunate that they are welcoming the President Xi by the red carpets. So they should know that in that red carpets there are bloods of the Uyghur people, Tibetan and other Chinese descendants.
Şunun üçün biz Angliya hökuməti bir demokratiya dövlət, Angliya hökumətinin Xitayga hər qandaq iqtisadi məsələni birinci qoyğa vaxt iqtisadi məsələni qoyganda kişilik hüquq məsələsini və Uyğurların aşındaq izlib atqan millətlərinin ahuzarı məsələsini anlaşını ümid qılırıq. Çünki bütün dünyada, bütün dünyanın aynı vaxtda xo'jayini bo'lgan bir dövlət hazır Xitoyninki bizni nima qilayotganligini ular bilmay qolmaydi. O'ttirig'i qo'yish kerak. Hamda hayron qolyapman, dunyoning hamma yeri Xitoy pul ko'tarib berib vatanning özünün içinde bunda kan tökülüvatıdı, dünyanın hem yerde teşhirvatıdı. Ben bugün Japonya'ya iltimas kılıp geldim bu gaplarımı demem. Japonya hükümetinin mu ve şununla birge Angliya bolsa Angliya hükümetinin mu Uyghur meselesine devamlı oturup koyuşunu, bütün dünyanın oturup koyuşunu ümit kılma bulup mu Japonya Asya'daki bir kudretlik demokratiya devlet.
Okay. Of course we want the governments and states should have good relation with China, good economic relation with China. But they should use that good relation with China to raise the human rights issues, like the situation in East Turkestan, situation in Tibet, and other issues related to human rights. And to use this as an opportunity to raise these issues. And now, of course, we came to the Japan to ask the Japanese government to involve in our issue. So we consider the Japan as a very powerful democracy in Asia, and we hope, we wish that the Japanese government take actions and to make the Uyghur issue as a part of its foreign policy and in its relation with China, to raise this issue when they met with the Chinese officials.
Good. We have time for one last question. Well, in that case, I ask it. If you could remind us just what is the Uyghur World Congress asking for? Are you asking for independence? Are you asking for autonomy? Or are you simply asking for respect of human rights?
Dünya Uyghur Kurultayı'nın zaten maksadı ne deydi? Müstakillik mi ya öz takdirini özü belgeleş mi ya fakatla kişilik hukuk meselesi mi?
Hazır biz bütün Uygurlarning özünün arzusu var, özünün talbi var. Biz hazır faqatlam Uygurlarning navbatdagi kishilik huquq masalasini hal qilamiz.
So of course the Uyghur people have their own, of course, wish and demand. But now what we are working is to raise the awareness about the human rights situation in our region.
Lekin Uyghur xalqi cho'qim kelgusida o'z taqdirini o'zi belgilash kerak deydi.
But we hope that the Uyghur people, we think that Uyghur people should determine, at the end, determine their own political future.
Öz taqdirini o'zi belgilash dedingizmi?
So that was a short one, so we have time for another one. Anybody wants to go for last question?
Menga qattiq gaplarni so'rag'ingiz kelmadi.
Well, if not, then
Davos yana deyamsa?
So I just wanted to continue, Ms. Kadeer said.
I'm sorry, please.
Endi Uyg'urlar şu dünyanın hem yerinden hem panalık soruduq, hem özümüzge yardım sorap 10 yıldan beri menvatımız biz tek yakın 10 yıl içinde avazımızın dünya anıltı aldık.
So as you know, the Uyghurs were not able to leave the country, and therefore they couldn't, make aware the international community about their situation. We started recently, of course. We started 10 years ago, and in 10-year period, we managed to at least to raise the Uyghur awareness in part of the world.
Ben turumdan çıkkanda bütün dünya ben vakırsamlam Uygur'a yardım kutluğa okşayıp deyip oylaptım deydi.
So when
Ben kendim şunda oylaptım.
when I was in, of course, in prison, and when I released from the prison, at the very initial period of my release from Chinese prison, I thought if I raise this issue, if I tell the world what's happening in my country, all the world will rise up and help me.
Ben şu vaxtda turumdan çıkıştım burun bizning ahvolimizni dünya uqmaydi, uqdigan bo'lsa Uyg'urlar bundaq kun ko'maydi. Men cho'qim uqtirman deb chepib chiqibdim. Men bolalarimni tashlab, hamma mulkimni tashlab deydi.
When I was in prison, I thought that the world doesn't know what's happening in my country. If the world become aware what's happening there, then they will not stay idle inside. They will, take action. They will help me to,
Yardım kuvvatmaydı emas. G'arb davlatlari, Turkiya davlati, Yaponiya qatorliq davlatlar, masalan Turkiya ko'chmanlarimizga nurg'un 10 minglagan ko'chmanlarimizni shunda qattiq ahvol ostida oldi. Amerika har qitim Xitoy bilan bo'lgan suhbatida Uyg'ur masalasini qo'yyotdi. Yevropa parlamenti Jenevami qo'ldan kelishicha yordam qilyotdi. Unda o'ng'ay emas ekan deydi.
Of course, there is some sympathy, some support from the Western world, Western countries, especially the U.S. government, raise constantly the Uyghur issue when the U.S. officials meet with the Chinese officials, when even with very high level within U.S. president even raised the issue, Uyghur issue, when they met with the Chinese presidents. And also Turkey, for example, in recent years were very supportive, and the Turkish government accepted thousands of Uyghur refugees to be resettled in Turkey.
Aldı. Yaponiyami bizning nurg'un o'quvchilarimizni o'qitib berdi, yordam qildi.
And also the Japanese government were very supportive of the Uyghur students, especially. There are thousands of Uyghur students who came here and studied in Japanese universities and schools.
Hazır Uyghur xalqi intayin ig'ir tasavvur qilib berishga bo'lmaydigan bir ig'ir ahvol ostida edi.
But now the Uyghur people are in a situation, in an unbearable situation.
Xizmat ko'chman Xitoylarda 10 millionlab olib chiqyapti Xinjiang Uyg'ur avtonom rayon degan atalmish avtonom rayonga.
The demographic of the East Turkestan already has changed, and Chinese government already transferred millions of Han Chinese from mainland China to East Turkestan.
Sharqiy Turkistonning ekologiyasi butunlay buzilib ketdi.
So ecology is already destroyed.
Uyg'urlarning o'z ona tili cheklanib, butun ma'rifdan qo'g'lab chiqarildi.
The Uyghur language has been banned as language of instruction at school and universities.
Uygurlarni 2006 yıldan başlap 14 yaştan 25 yaşgacha toy qilmagan qizlarimiz majbur Xitoy o'lkalariga o'tkazib ketildi. Minglarcha.
And since 2006, Chinese government implemented a new policy of transferring young Uyghur women and girls from East Turkestan, especially from southern part of East Turkestan to mainland China.
Qizlarni bermaganlarni milliy bo'lgunchi deb turmuqqa tashladi.
And the parents who opposed this policy and resisted the Chinese authorities to take their daughters, they were accused by the Chinese government as terrorists and put in jail.
2007 yılı bir yıl içinde 24 ming Janubiy Xinjiangdan qizni akitib g'alba qildik deb e'lon qildi o'zining veb-saytida.
Only in 2007, Chinese government announced that they transferred 24,000 Uyghur girls from East Turkestan to mainland China, and they said they succeeded in their policy of transferring Uyghur girls to mainland
Hökumətinin özününki veb-saytida bor.
So it is a official, news official.
Şuningdan
report.
tortib har yili vazifa qilib Sharqi Turkistondan qizlarni yo'tkab ketib bordi.
Since then, Chinese government constantly transferred thousands of young Uyghur women and girls from mainland
biz
China.
ishga o'rlashtiramiz deydi.
The excuse of the Chinese government is that they are providing jobs for the Uyghur girls and women.
Milyon Xitoylar kelib Sharqi Turkistonda ishlaydi. Bizning qizlarimiz nimish Xitoy o'lkasiga olib ishga o'rlashtiriladi.
So it is a lie, Ms. Kadeer says, because if they want to provide them job, they can provide them job in East Turkestan, because Chinese government every year transfer millions of Han Chinese from mainland China and providing job, housing and everything.
Endi Uyg'urlar yer asti baylığımız, yer üstü baylığımız bizning cheksiz shundaq bayliq to'shqan bir zimin shundaq go'zal. Shuningga nipet içip birer quduq içip ya ko'mir kan ichish huquqi yo'q. Butunlay Xitoy ko'chmanlarining shu huquqi bor. Boy bo'lishga ruxsat qilinmaydi.
As you know, East Turkestan is a very rich country. It has a very natural resources like oil, gas, and all kind of rare minerals. And even the Uyghurs doesn't have the right to work in the oil and gas industry, which is very high income industries.
Oşununqa işçi xizmatchini Xitoy o'lkasidan yo'tkab keladi.
They bring workers for that industries from mainland China.
Uyg'urlar 86% dehqon.
As you know, the Uyghurs are 86% of the Uyghurs are farmers.
Bütün dehqonlarning yeri, munbat suvlari Xitoylarning bin tuan deydigan bir askarlarga tortib olib berildi. Uyg'urlar hammasi azan qilyapti.
There is another entity, semi-military entity in East Turkestan, in Xinjiang, which calls the construction army, Xinjiang Construction Army. So it is a semi-military entity. So the land of fruitful lands of the Uyghur farmers confiscated by the Chinese authorities, given to the to this entity, and they own all these
Yüzlab adam yerimni bikoga tatib oldi da Beijingga az qilib kes qo'lga oldi.
So hundreds of Uyghurs couldn't went to Beijing to give petition to the Chinese authorities that their land was illegally confiscated by the local authorities, but they were beaten, arrested, and sent back to Xinjiang.
And Uyg'urlar nima ish qildi?
And the farmers who lose their houses, lands, they came to the cities, and from cities, some of them went to mainland China. So what the Uyghurs should do?
Unumg'allarning hammasini terrorist deb turmuqqa tashlashdi. Ossa, bostirsa, Uyg'urlar qanday qiladi?
So the people who protested, the people who speak up against these Chinese government's policy was accused by the Chinese authorities as terrorists, as separatists, and put in jail. So what should the Uyghurs do?
Men bir oilamni deb birman. Men 6 yil turmada yotdim.
spent 3 years in prison and died in prison.
Hiç qanday iş qilmadik biz, xatolik o'tkazmadik hech
We
qanday.
didn't do anything against the Chinese government. We didn't do anything illegal.
Biz bir oila 37 yil turmada yatdik.
So from one family, we spent 37 years in prison.
Ömerning dadasi 10 yil yetib chiqdi.
Omar, my name is Omar. So Omar's father spent 10 years in
Doktor, odatdagi bir doktor.
Yes,
Bütün
yes,
Uyg'ur
yes.
oilasi ana ashundaq kun ko'ryapti. Uyg'urlar qanday qiladi?
So every single Uyghur family has someone in prison or someone who spent many years in prison. So
Mush hozir o'ch olamiz deb chiqib ketganlar nemishqa? Hammasi turmada tutulib qiynalganlar. Ash turmada qiynab, nayt qattiq azoblaganlar. Turmadan qochib chiqib, ashundaqda taraf qochib ketdi hozir.
still people who, some of the people who resort to violence are the people who are parents, who are fathers, brothers or sisters are suffering in Chinese prison, or who themselves spend many years in Chinese prisons. So they resort to violence, some of the people, only to take revenge from the Chinese government. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. And as it is our custom, we have a 1-year honorary membership for Ms. Rebiya Kadeer. Please come back again. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's it. Okay, mushkil.